In this lecture, we will understand the theta notation. So far you have understood the big O notation that gives the upper bound, and then big omega notation that gives the lower bound. The theta notation is the, you can assume your function, okay, f of n is sandwiched between both lower bound and upper bound. So this is called as, theta bound is also called as tight bound because you can imagine a car moving between a lane. Okay, so this is a upper bound and this is my lower bound. So my car is moving here. So this is you assume if f of n, your function. So this is upper bound, say some c2 into g of n. Here it is c1 g of n. So if you observe here, this g of n remains same, upper bound and lower bound. So then we can say f of n is theta of g of n. So you should have both lower bound and upper bound defined on the same function g of n with constants. Okay, the constants may be same or different, depends on the g of n function. So if you visualize it, after some crossover point n naught on the input size, you have c2 g of n, the upper bound, and then my function f of n, which I want to bound, the theta bound, then c1 g of n. So it is in between the upper bound and lower bound. That is the reason why it is called tight. It should be between the upper and lower bound. So mathematically define, so all the functions are positive. So 0 less than or equal to c1 into g of n less than or equal to f of n less than or equal to c2 g of n for all n greater than or equal to n naught. Okay. One important property is we already know g of n remains same, okay, for lower bound as well as upper bound. And then finally, if they are same, then I will have a theta bound. So f of n equal to order of g of n and f of n equal to big omega g of n, then f of n equal to theta of g of n. So you can define theta of g of n if and if only I have O of g of n is defined and big omega, the lower bound, is defined. This is a very important property. Now we'll see some other properties that we have seen for both big omega and big O. The theta of g of n represents mathematically set functions sharing an identical growth class. Writing the standard expression f of theta equal to g of n formally means set membership, that is f of n belongs to theta of g of n. So this is a set. Okay. Here all should have same. Okay, see, for example, this set, if I take f of n is equal to n square something, okay, then this set will contain what? It cannot contain the linear terms. It can contain, for example, 3n square plus 5n, okay, something like this, but it cannot contain n, okay, n power 4. Why? Because already defined the property that this g of n is same for g of n is same for O, omega and theta. Then only I can define this theta bound. That is the reason. So X has set, but it contains same functions. Big theta enforces an explicit pairing of two distinct bounding inequalities. Okay, so the boundary condition, lower bound, is sandwiched between this f of n is sandwiched between the lower bound and upper bound. That is the property. For example, if I take f of n equal to, this has 2n plus 3, then I have to bound this between c1 g of n. Let us say g of n is n in both the cases. c1 n, here c2 n, assuming g of n is equal to n. Then you have to choose, okay, c1, c2 and n naught value. Okay, so if I choose c1, you can choose it as 2. So 2n is less than or equal to 2n plus 3 less than or equal to, you can choose c2 as 3n. For all, now you have to find the n naught value. Okay, n naught value, you have to take the, this one, for this to satisfy, you will have one n naught value. So let us call it as n naught 0 1. For this to satisfy, you should have one more n naught value, say n naught 2. So the final n naught value will be what? The maximum of n01 comma n02. So for this example, the n01 can be what? So it satisfy for any n, so greater than or equal to 1. Here you have to check. So it only satisfies for n greater than or equal to 3. So maximum of 1, 3 is 3. So final n naught value will be 3. This is how you solve the problems. Big theta systematically disregards early structural initialization and localized low input variation. That is the case of n naught. So for all n greater than or equal to n naught, only I will have the asymptotic notations. So even if function spikes unevenly across n equal to 5 or n equal to 12, those minor blips or variations do not affect its class as long as its long-term scaling stabilizes past n naught. So this is valid only after n is greater than or equal to n naught. Independent constants multipliers leave the primary underlying function class completely unchanged. Okay, so when I write C1 or C2, say n square, underlying growth is what n square only. So asymptotically, we are only not interested in the constants, right? So what that meaning is independent constant multipliers leave the underlying function class name. For example, a dot n square belongs to theta n square only. A can take any value, but we are not interested in it. It's the growth is order of n square. That's what you write, theta of n square or omega of n square. So the constant factor shifts the slope, but never changes the underlying shape of the class. That is how the order of growth. F of n equal to theta of g of n, both terms scale along parallel velocity tracks at extreme inputs. Neither expression can outspace or lag behind the other by more than a fixed finite constant ratio as parameters goes. So when you can imagine this property as two vehicles traveling at different constant speeds share the same progress profile. Neither experiences compounding exponential separation from the other. That means what they are saying, you are bounding this function f of n between one upper bound and lower bound. Okay, that is C1 g of n, C2 g of n. Here it is C1 g of n. So one is not changing. So order of growth will be parallel. They're all parallel, right? When it's a curve, it will be looking like this. More likely, it will be like this. So one will not bend like this. One will not do like this. Okay. So that is the meaning. Because theta is using the same function as upper bound and lower bound g of n. So let's see some examples. Given f of n equal to 3n square plus 3n plus 4. Prove that f of n equal to theta of n square. So start with the definition. So you have g of n given already as n square. Now C1 n square is less than or equal to your f of n, that is 2n square plus 3n plus 4 will be less than or equal to C2 n square. Now you solve this. So this side is easy. So C1 I can choose at 1. Okay. And then so let us solve it here. What it will become now, it will become, I'll take only this part, first part, okay? And then we'll solve this part. So first we'll solve the lower bound. C1 if I take equal to 1, I will get it as n square less than or equal to 2n square plus 3n plus 4. Okay. Now this holds for all n naught 0 1 n 0 1 is greater than or equal to 1. Okay. So this is always lower because there are positive terms here, right? Hence n square C1 equal to 1 can act as the lower bound for any n value greater than or equal to 1. So that is n naught 1. Now you check the upper bound. So let us choose C2 equal to, so it is 2 here. Let me make it 3 here. Okay. I'm trying to find the tight values. So this side it is 2n square plus 3n plus 4 is less than or equal to 3n square. Now for what value this holds true? So it is just try to factorize 2n square. If I take n square, 2n square, that side is n square minus 3n minus 4 should be greater than or equal to 0. So this is n square minus 4n plus n minus 4 is greater than or equal to 0. So n not 2 should be greater than or equal to 4. Okay. 1 will get minus 1, so we will not consider the factor. So 0, 2. Now C2 is what you it as 3. So these are fixed. Now what is the n naught value? N naught will be equal to maximum of, because it has to apply for both. Okay, because g of n remains same. N naught 1 comma n naught 2. So n naught should be greater than or equal to 4. So 1 and 4. So 4 is the answer, n naught. Similarly, solve given as c1, then g of n is n. c1 n should be less than or equal to pi n plus 2 should be less than or equal to c2 n. Okay. Now choose c1. If I choose it as 1, I can choose it as 1. So what will happen? N is, we will solve only first this part. N is less than or equal to pi n plus 2. So this is always true for what? N naught greater than or equal to 1. So n1 is greater than or equal to 1 for all n values, right? It's always true because it is pi n this side. Now you find out this part. C2, let us choose it as 6 5 because pi n is here. So we'll take one more. So C2 is 6. So what I will have now? 6 pi n plus 2 is less than or equal to 6n. So this will happen only solve this. So n naught 2 should be greater than or equal to 2. Okay. So what is C2? 6. So therefore final n naught this should be greater than or equal to maximum of n01 comma n02. This is 2 greater than or equal to 2. That is the n naught value final. Next. So there is a minus sign, so be careful. Here I have to bind it by theta n square. So now C1 n square is less than or equal to 1 by 2 n square minus 3n to less than or equal to C2 n square. Now be careful because it is minus here. If I choose C1 equal to 1, then it becomes n square less than 1 by 2 n square minus 3n. If I choose C1 equal to 1 by 2, it will be still 1 by 2 n square less than 1 by 2 n square minus 3n. See, it's subtracting something. This should be still lower. So let us choose C1 equal to 1 by 4. Okay, this implies 1 by 4. This part I am solving now. 1 by 4 n square less than or equal to 1 by 2 n square minus 3n. So now you solve it. So this will be 1 by 4 n square minus 3n greater than or equal to 0. That implies you solve this, will get n naught 1 is greater than or equal to 4 will go 3 12. Okay. Now you find the other part. This will be easy because minus is here. 1 by 2 n square minus 3n should be less than or equal to. So you choose it is 1 by 2 here. Okay. You can try to put c equal to 1 by 2 only. Okay. So C2, just choose 1 by 2. So what it will be? 1 by 2 n square. So this is always true, right? Because I am subtracting some value. So definitely this part will be less than always this part for any n naught value. So n naught 2 is greater than or equal to 1. So final maximum of these 2 is 12. So C1 equal to 1 by 4. C2 is equal to 1 by 2. Then n naught should be greater than or equal to 12. The maximum of 1 and 12. Next, a log function. So C1 n log n is the g of n they are given to be less than or equal to n log n plus n less than or equal to C2 n log n. Okay. Now we will try to find this C1. So always if you see this function is greater than this function for any C value. So C1 you choose small value 1. So n log n is less than or equal to n log n plus n is there, right? So no problem. So this always be less for any value greater than or equal to 1. Okay. This we found out. Now upper bound. n log n log n plus n should be less than or equal to C2 n log n. If you observe here, there is plus here. Here there is no plus. So this value C2 should be higher than this. Okay, let us choose 2. C2 is equal to 2 and find the n naught value. So if I choose that it to be 2, what will be n log n plus n should be less than or equal to 2 n log n. So if I solve this, n log n minus n is greater than or equal to 0, or log n is greater than or equal to 1. N goes this side, n gets cancelled. So here the base is not given. So let us say it's b. So it will be n will be greater than or equal to, so n naught 2 will be greater than or equal to b power 1 or b. So if it is base is, they give base equal to 2, base 2, that is log 2, log to the base 2, 2 or 10 or exponent. So you put those values. So it will be, it is n naught equal to 1 here. So n naught 2 will be always greater than this. So final n naught value will be greater than or equal to b, whatever base value they give. This is the answer. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe and